Hello, everyone. Are you RTO owner or compliance manager or perhaps trainer? And if audit is coming, and I know the process itself is very painful, very stressful, and if you have so many questions, where to begin, what to do, and how to start, we have an expert here, Mr. Ben Thakkar, who can answer all your questions, who can guide you how to process, who can give you an answer as well if you have any troubles, like how to manage before the audit comes. So here's the expert. Welcome, Mr. Ben Thakkar, and please guide everyone through the process.
First of all, thank you, Mahi, for the warm welcome. Audit and compliance, very interesting subject. Let's bring it on and let's see how can we add value to RTO people.
Sure. First and very intimidating question that many people get is, what are the key areas that ASQA focuses on during an RTO audit?
Okay, so ASQA focus a range of things pretty much. If you are an RTO, it's SRTOs 2015. If you are a CRICOS provider, then it will be a SRTOs 2015 and National Code 2018. But there are areas that are very significant according to ASQA that comes from their risk assessment, that comes from whatever affecting the students and student journey, something related to the qualification issuance. Those are the priorities. And if I want to draw down a few things in terms of priority, the number one thing is the training and assessment strategy. That the RTO need to make sure that align, because the training and assessment strategy is like a roadmap. If the roadmap has to be correct if you want to reach to the destination, and if the roadmap is not right, it's technically going to have a problem. So that's number one. The number second thing is your assessment and assessment system. Because if assessments are non-compliant or not meeting the requirement, very likely the student evidence is also not going to meet the compliance requirement. So that's second part. Third thing is the trainer and assessor. And then their currency is one of the important area that ASQA focusing, that if the trainer and assessors are not actually qualified or not meeting all the requirement, then they're also creating a problem. And if I want to add the four things, then it's about the validations and other areas of that, and how you're doing the quality assurance. So those are 4 or 5 major things that if I'm an RTO, I will do those 4 or 5 things first.
It makes sense. And when you say, especially like compliance and assessment should be compliant, how do you ensure, like, let's say if I have RTO, how do I ensure that my resources or my assessment that I've got are compliant?
Great question. And I think this is one of the most important thing and a most challenging thing for the RTO, because it's based on a range of ASQA audit. You know, the majority RTO is struggling in clause 1.8 related to the assessment. The journey start with the step 1. So before I even implement that assessment, I do a pre-validation. So the pre-validation is that before we give that assessment to the trainer and student to teach, we just make sure that all the assessment that we have used or bought it from third party or created in-house are actually meeting all this requirement of training packages. The assessment is contextualized to the relevant cohort. So if I know already before I implement, I prevent a lot of headache. So that's number one. Once we implement it, I just need to make sure that the evidence that we collecting is actually sufficient. If I get the sufficient evidence, then it's going to meet all those requirements. So therefore, all the instruction, for example, if question says that 5 strategy needs to be written, then make sure the student write 5 strategies there. If assessment is saying that they need to submit template 1, 2, and 3, then make sure they submit all those 3 templates and get all those things. And once you have collected all those evidence properly, and then you do your validation process. If you do all those things properly, your assessment system is aligned, and very less likely you're going to have non-compliance issues in the audit.
Yeah, makes sense. Very nice, very informative, right? Another thing that I wanted to ask, especially that is again related to the training resources or materials that the RTO normally uses over there. And because as of course, when the audit comes, they have so many questions. But another question that we normally get, or I've heard it a lot, is how often the training resources need to be updated just to remain compliant with the current standards?
Okay, so this is a very tricky question because there is no one set answer for that. So the training resources and training material, there is no set end date or anything that, okay, by end of this year, this needs to be updated. There could be a range of factors that require to update.
Okay.
So then one of the reason that needs to be updated, if there any legislation update that happened that directly connected to the resources of particular unit.
Yeah.
So I can give you an example that, for example, it's any privacy policy, any other thing that have been changed which is related to community service. And that's affect how they deliver the care and all those part. And if we have put an old privacy policy and things in the resources, that needs to be updated. So that could be one of the things. Second thing is that when we conduct the validation, so in the validation, we find out that the resource is actually, the question number 5 is confusing. Because most of the students were confused about question 11. So maybe we need to reword it and make it better.
Yeah.
So that I also need to update it. Another reason that when the unit is becomes superseded, or that's another time that because of the unit becomes superseded, that been added new information to it, that's I also need to update the resources. Another fourth thing, that when you have a new cohort that's starting, that cohort requirement is different. For example, this cohort that you have is actually an experienced cohort, work in the industry, and you are delivering in the workplace. But the resources that you have or assessment that you have is actually talking about the simulation and classroom, and the practical happen in simulation. So now those practical is going to happen in actual workplace. So your assessment needs to be contextualized to that. So those are 4 or 5 things that when those things happen, you need to update your assessments.
Yeah, makes sense. Another question sometimes that we get from people is saying that how can RTO prepare for the ASQA audit to ensure the compliance?
Yes, I think we discussed about the audit, the important areas and stuff. So just to preparation for the audit, what I see that as part of CEO declaration that needs to be done every year, in March every year, the RTO cannot complete the CEO declaration without doing an audit or internal audit, because how would I make sure that am I compliant or non-compliant without checking it? So just to preparation for the audit, it actually goes year around. So how that is worked, that on what I see the best model is that you can take few clauses every month or 2 months. Rather than doing everything in a one go, it can be hectic process for the team. It can be hectic process for the compliance people and stuff. And sometimes we try to rush things in a 1 day or 2 days.
Okay.
So, and there are few of the clients, and this is one of our one of the clients that they are doing these practices, and I was like, oh, this is really good. I think I take this and I'll share it with the people as well. And what I found that, and I advise this to people as well, that every month or 2, maybe a compliance manager or person who's doing compliance, maybe you are a CEO who's managing compliance. I will take, let's this month just do the marketing audit. So maybe I'm going to check about clause 4.1, whatever related marketing material or website information, all those things, is there aligned or not? And whatever the feedback that find out, I'll complete in the document, put it in a continuous improvement, create a meeting with the relevant people, provide them the task to do, and then put the review process, and I improve it. And maybe a month or 2, I'll go with the enrollment clause. And then so on and on and on and all those parts. And like I said, if you have audit in 6 months or 3 months, and if by any chance, if you're not able to do all those things, as I said, that identify those priority area. Number 1, check your TRACES, training and assessment strategy. Number 2, is check your assessment system. Make sure your student assessments are right. Make sure your trainers are trainer qualification, all the documentation are aligned. Your quality assurance system are in place. Your validation is done. So I would do those 4 or 5 things first, and then I'll go to other clauses.
Makes sense. Let's say if you just wanted to give like 5 pro tip, just wanted to start the RTO audit process. Let's say if I'm RTO, audit's coming next. What is the first 5 things that I need to focus on? Yeah,
I think that's a good question. Like I discussed in the previous question. So the first thing is that if I would be preparing for the audit, first thing I will do is I'll make sure my training and assessment strategy is right. Because that's a centerpiece of document, because it has information of assessment method in the unit, how long this unit going to be delivered, what are the simulation resources that is part of it, and all those things. And that is pretty much a good guide for me, because through that, I will gonna use the marketing information. I'm gonna use those information in assessment as well. And that will actually guide me through that. Number 1. Number 2, after that, I will review the last 6 months of assessments that has been conducted. So maybe randomly pick few units, and according to I'll pick the few students as well, and see where we are standing. Identifying that is there any gap or not in the assessment, and whatever the outcome of it, I'll go from there. Third thing, I will make sure that all my trainer documents are aligned. That including vocation competency, currency, the qualification, the PD, trainer matrix, verified all the credential and stuff. And then after I go validation, and after that validation and stuff, I'll say that I'll check the industry consultation. The 4 or 5 steps, I'll do the first. Okay. Another question that is again more related to audit. I know we are talking a lot about audit, but because we wanted to cover as much as we can. Another thing that I wanted to ask is, what are the most common non-compliance that found in ASQA audit, and how can RTO avoid them? There are a range of non-compliance, because again, the non-compliance can vary to RTO, but RTO to RTO. But what I see, if I see a categorized into top 3 or 4 or 5, so the first common is, as I already said, that their assessments are not meeting the principle of assessment and rules of evidence. Okay. What it's saying that maybe the assessment tool has a gap. The tool is not sufficient to meet the training package requirement. And then the second in that category comes in that the evidence that has been provided for the student, that also not sufficient. Okay. So that's very, very common that we get nowadays. Second, now this is what we have seen in a recent situation, especially in international RTO, where there is a international RTO not putting that attendance policy, or not implementing the attendance policy, not monitoring the attendance for it. That also we have seen significantly in last 1.5 years as well. The third part is about the industry consultation, that clause 1.5, 1.6, that the RTO not able to cover the range of industry consultation, plus they're not able to demonstrate that how that been utilized for continuously improve the training and assessment strategy. And if I think the fourth one is about the validation. So those are the top things I see in non-compliance in RTO. One more important question as well here, that's like a practical aspect comes in. So which is, how can RTO train their staff to be audit ready at all time? Oh, great question. I know, you don't know when it's going to come. That's how I always say that it's a really, really great question, because what I always like that we all need to be ready and prepare in advance, because when you try to do things in last minute, in rush, you make mistakes and stuff. Plus, what I see that if you really want to be, provide a good quality education, your staff should aware of what compliance and quality looks like, and they've been trained and understand what they need to do the compliance part. It's not that staff doesn't want to do all those things. Sometimes what I ask and reflect myself, like, okay, as a manager or as RTO owner or staff, have I give them sufficient training? Have I give them sufficient information? Have I put the process in place? Do I have the relevant forms to capture and train all those staff there? So number one thing is that we need to give a good training, correct training to the staff, what compliance means. Because that could be a lot of different understanding about this. Maybe from one RTO to other RTO could be a different situation. Because the staff who come from one RTO, they might do not have any workplace delivery experience, where in the new RTO they have workplace, so they need to know all those parts. So, and it's not only the compliance people, all the staff, including your admin, including your account, including your student support officer, including your trainer, whoever, if everyone do their job properly, then it's become easier. So what I say, I would put the training plan for all the staff, discuss what are the challenges coming up. And once we do the training, once they know what to do, then the goal is to just say, maybe a monthly, we just need to monitor that, okay, we meant to do this part, are we doing it?
And when you say monitor, like do you recommend like to monitor every monthly basis or 6 monthly?
What I see, the sooner we identify is better. So personally, I advise this to the clients as well, that if you know where you're standing every month, you can make correction very quickly.
Exactly.
If I know after 6 months, that might be damage of whatever damage has been done, maybe I need to cover up for 6 months. But every month, if I exactly know how many complaints I received, what was the cause of the complaint, I exactly know, maybe I pick up my 2-student file to checking the enrollment process, that did they done the properly. Maybe I randomly have a look of a website. And if I do that, whatever the checkpoint, maybe that requires 2-3 hours or 4 hours to look at it. But if anything is not right, you can pick it up in 1 month. And that can be improved quickly. So because you identify that quickly, it means there's a less damage and less hassle and less money to be spent to fix.
That's right. So it's like doing an internal audit, right? And when we talk about internal audit, the next question is kind of in that area, and that says, what role does internal auditing play in preparing for the ASQA audit?
Like I said, very crucial. Like I said, as CEO declaration needs to be done, and internal audit is indirectly, it's a mandatory for our RTO, because ASQA also say that, okay, what evidence do you have for the CEO declaration that you have done? And as I said before, that the internal audit is actually a really, really good practice, because then you identify where are the gaps, where we are not able to meet the compliance requirement, what are the things that are working, what are the things that are not working. And once you know that, then you can plan how we want to improve, and then you can plan that how we make sure that we monitor this new process and constantly improve from it. So what I see, that if internal audit done correctly, because it's not a tick and flick. If you do the internal audit properly, then you do the action plan properly, then you do the relevant meeting, create a project plan, put the task to the relevant people who require them to do, and then monitor, it will lead to a quality and ultimately lead to a compliance, and also lead to a student satisfaction, the staff satisfaction, and it also helps RTO in all other ways.
Makes sense. And one last and I would say important question, one very important question is, what documentation should RTO maintain to be audit ready at all times?
This is a very, very broad question, because according to SRTS 2015, there could be hundreds of documents that you need to maintain. But what I say, that what we mostly find out, that RTO actually do all those processes, they genuinely wants to do the right thing, but sometimes they lack of the retaining those evidence. So, and that's what I see in most of the time as well, that let's say, I just give you one example, that when you do the internal audit, if you find some gap, then you need to do, you do the meeting with relevant people. Let's say I find some gap in trainer file. I'm going to talk to trainer anyway and ask them to fix and all this part. But when they don't capture all those things. So what I see, that the way ASQA see is that I ask this question all the time, and I think I learned from John Dyer or someone, that ask always that what is the evidence of this? So every time said, okay, for example, if I give you that trainer currency. So trainer gave me for the currency a CV document where it says that this person work in this industry, da 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 da. You need to ask question yourself, what is the evidence of this? I mean, this could be, because in CV, even I can write I'm an astronaut. But am I able to prove that I'm an astronaut or not?
Makes sense.
So for that, you need to ask question, what is the evidence of this? So this could be that the agreement that they work into it, is there any document that prove that? So RTO need to capture all those things. So every point of time ask us, what is the evidence of this?
Yeah.
And what I found that if you retain a good amount of meeting minutes that you have done, and all those steps that you're doing it, if you retain all those evidence, it becomes easier to provide those documents in the audit.
So very, like, I would say you have covered the entire question in like very nice, like best manner, I would say, like, because even being a naive or being a new person, especially let's say if I have a new RTO, this process just basically solve my problem. I mean, the entire discussion, I would say, entire explanation has given me a lot of, I would say, insight into the audit. Thank you so much, Ben, and thank you so much for such a great insight. And I would say, like, basically everything, every aspect is covered within this explanation of yours. And I would say, if you have any question, if you think that anything that hasn't been covered, and if you think that we should cover some of the topics that you may have question or you may have confusion about, comment down below and we'll make sure that in the next video, every single thing is going to get covered. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. Hope you liked it and hope we have added value to you.
Contact our team to make your RTO an exemplary model for delivering new age learning.